Live from a studio apartment, this is Misinformation. Well, it's Friday night. Everyone's out partying, as you can hear through my window. The parking lot that I live just outside of is popping off. Yeah. Hold up. Let me pull up the chat. We're going to get started. We got some big stories to cover tonight. We had supposed confirmation, that Ilhan Omar, the White House, supposedly has info that she did in fact commit immigration fraud. We're going to get into that in a second. There's also plenty of other fraud stories. You got Nick Shirley doing some new reporting. He was speaking at CPAC earlier today. Big story right now breaking, though. This is kind of breaking as we speak, so we're going to pull it up and go to it. So apparently there was a let me see if I can pull this up here. So apparently there was just an attack on U.S. troops. This is really bad news, obviously, but we should cover it. So this just happened in Kuwait. It was at Prince Sultan Air Base. So that's here. You guys see that? That's Google Maps. We're going to go to it here. Let's just type it in, I guess. Prince Sultan Air Base. Sure, whatever. So it's in Kuwait. I don't know how to get it to zoom in on this, but basically somewhere in the middle of this large desert area. That's where the base is located. It's right across the sea from Iran. So Iran's right up here in the northeast area of the map. I don't know if you can see the cursor or not. So the Daily Mail is reporting this. Let me pull it up here. This just happened about 2 hours ago, I want to say. U.S. soldiers seriously wounded and planes damaged after Iranian missile attack on airbase. This is the Daily Mail reporting. Around a dozen U.S. soldiers have reportedly been wounded and multiple planes damaged following an Iranian missile strike at a base in Saudi Arabia. The service members were on Prince Sultan Air Base, that's what we were just checking out, when it was struck by at least one missile and several unmanned aerial vehicles. I assume those are the Shahed drones that Iran has, according to multiple U.S. and Arab officials. Earlier reports listed 10 U.S. soldiers wounded, though the New York Times now reports that the toll has risen to 12. These are pretty bad attacks when they happen, even if it's just with the drones. We had previously, sort of near the start of the war, there was one attack that happened that was a drone attack, I know, on a U.S. base in Kuwait with the Shahed drones. They hit sort of a mobile station, and that was what had killed those 6 U.S. service members previously, right? This one appears to be a missile strike. So if we go back to the map here, obviously that's not directly next to Iran. You've got, it happened in Kuwait, somewhere down here. I was just zoomed in on it, but I lost it here. But in any case, kind of in the middle of Kuwait. So I'm guessing, and apparently they somehow got drones over there as well. So in addition to launching missiles, the base was hit with a drone attack. There's sort of conflicting reports right now. Sorry, I'm just pulling up the chat here. Some conflicting reports on what the injuries are. We have here Daily Mail's reporting 2 service members are very seriously injured, while 8 others are seriously injured. So apparently everybody hurt pretty badly, but maybe 2 at this point critically injured, possibly dead. We're not sure yet. This comes, of course, at a time when Trump is saying that he's negotiating an end to the war. He's giving an extension of, I believe it was 10 days for Iran to come to the negotiating table. So I have a feeling this is not going to turn out well as far as the negotiations are concerned. This is probably not going to work out well in Iran's favor. But there you have it, an escalation in the attacks. Currently, we're figuring out what exactly happened, what went wrong. You had the... we're going to get into some propaganda in a little bit. Discussions of propaganda. I won't be giving you propaganda. This was the... I'm calling this guy... This is like the last man standing in Iran. He's apparently like the last IRGC leader who's willing to come out in public and speak at this point. they've had him all over the news recently, releasing these videos. So he's there bragging about the drones that just struck the base in Kuwait. They kind of inflate everything they say. He does say he believes that they completely wiped out the forces over there, etc. So you have him talking some shit. Imagine his number will be up soon. But yeah, let's see if the Daily Mail says anything else about this. They're referring to, they mentioned the strike earlier on March 1st, where we had the 6 U.S. service members that were killed. That was with the drone strike. They mentioned over 300 U.S. troops so far have been wounded, not all combat, and at least 13 killed in the ongoing conflict. I think the first half of that was in that first drone attack on the Kuwait base, and then I think there were 6 or 7 more who were killed when a refueling plane went down on a non-combat operation, I believe it was. So we'll look into that as we go. I'll give you some updates. Top story tonight, we're going to get into some fraud. There's plenty of news about fraud, so we can always kind of get into some fraud stories. I wish you guys could see my notes. It's like a big section with bullet points on fraud. This was big from today, though. We had JD Vance was doing an interview with Benny Johnson. Benny was asking about Ilhan Omar, and JD Vance all but seems to confirm that the White House, in fact, believes that she did, in fact, commit immigration fraud. This is something that's been rumored for a long time. Nobody's ever really looked into it. He seems to confirm it here that they have some info on her. Take a listen.
About Ilhan Omar and Tim
Exactly.
Walz.
I got some, by the way, if you're wondering why I'm pausing, this is why I'm late tonight, too. I had to wait on these friggin' Apple headphones. They were getting delivered from UPS. It was unfortunately the UPS driver's 3rd day on the job, he says. So he's about an hour late, so I had to wait for him. But I thought these would hook up. Connected. They should kind of, they might not work. Let's go for it anyways. Okay.
See, Ilhan Omar, the president and the White House have been out saying that she married her brother, that there is immigration fraud going on here. These are deportable denaturalization offenses. Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, so we actually think that Ilhan Omar definitely committed immigration fraud against the United States of America. And I talked to Stephen Miller about this actually recently. We're trying to look at what the remedies are. That's the thing that we're trying to figure out is what are the legal remedies now that we know that she's committed immigration fraud? How do you go after her? How do you investigate her? How do you actually do the thing? How do you build the case necessary to get some justice for the American people? There's a related issue, Benny, which is she has been at the center of a lot of the worst fraudsters in the Somalian community. So do I know that Ilhan Omar was aware that the Quality Leering Center was defrauding the American people? I'm not certain of it, but we at least need to investigate it, because if people can commit wrongdoing without even the fear that they're going to be found out, that's a fundamental problem. So I'm worried about the immigration fraud. I'm also worried about what did Ilhan Omar know about what was happening in the Somali community, and why was nobody looking into it until, frankly, Donald Trump came along?
I can't hear shit right now. I didn't hear any of that. I hope it was interesting. I listened to it before, though. So basically, yeah, he seems to insinuate that the White House actually has information on Ilhan Omar and her brother. So if you're unaware, the story basically, it's not that there is a misrepresentation of the claim against Ilhan Omar, where it's basically that she somehow married her brother in order that she might get citizenship into the U.S., right? What actually is the claim is that she married her brother in order to get him into the U.S. So that's the actual immigration violation fraud claim that's being levied against her. Trump, when he comes out, he frames it as she married her brother to get into the U.S. That's, I assume, somewhat on purpose, just because it's easier for people to understand. So I'm sure that he's aware of the actual claim, but the actual claim, she immigrated successfully to the U.S., had a brother who was overseas, and so to basically smuggle him into the country and get him to be able to enroll in colleges and get benefits here, she married her brother. That's the claim. So JD Vance here is saying that they believe that she 100% committed immigration fraud, and now they're apparently, the White House is looking into, okay, what steps can you take to actually prosecute against this now? Because you have two things going on. You have the fraud, and then she's also a member of Congress, an elected, unfortunately, member of Congress, right? Happens to be elected in the same state where she launched the Feeding Our Future program, which was the program that gave free meals to kids, was what it was supposed to do. Ended up feeding the future of several hundred Somalians who used it for fraud, got millions of dollars for non-existent food programs. She was the one that launched that. The same district, the same area, obviously voted her into power. So it's tricky because they got to figure out if it was an immigration violation, how do you prosecute it, right? They've actually looked into this too. I think it was in like 2019. There was a panel that looked into it, found that there was some evidence to the claims, and refused to actually prosecute against it. So the whole situation reminds me of the fraud cases that we're hearing currently, about the hospice fraud in Los Angeles, about the Somalian fraud in Minnesota, where it's this ongoing thing that the government seems to be aware of, that people are aware of is happening. And yet for some reason, nobody actually prosecutes it, right? They sort of allow it to happen, almost like it's a quid pro quo of sorts, right? She also has, obviously, the mysterious winery. So her husband has a company that, if you've ever looked up their website, it's essentially a consulting firm that doesn't appear to have any real clients. He also had a winery, which doesn't appear to have any wines that they make or sell. So there's allegations against her that in addition to the immigration fraud, she might be involved, or her husband might be involved in some type of money laundering situation. I don't know that to be true. I don't have any proof of that, obviously, but those are the claims against her. She's got some shady businesses set up, seem like shell businesses. That's what people are saying. And then also that she may have married her brother to get him into the country. So that'll be interesting. We have JD Vance moving in on it. Separately, had other stories of fraud. So Nick Shirley's been going into hospices in Los Angeles. He's uncovered what he says is massive fraud there. And JD Vance is involved in that as well. We'll get into that in a second. But here's Nick Shirley first, speaking at CPAC. He had a pretty good speech. He's not the most eloquent person in the world. I'll let you listen to it in a second. But the things he says really hit home. Just take a listen, see what you think.
And one thing for you guys to think about is, who are the critics? Who are those people that are saying that you're the bad person, or that what you're doing is not right? Well, a lot of times it's the media. A lot of the times it's that person who listens to the media where they've lost that idea of common sense thinking. And so nowadays, the most important thing I feel like for any of us to do is to think, okay, is the cause I'm fighting for, is it a controversial issue? Or is it actually non-controversial, but it's an issue that has become controversial from the critics? And we cannot ever pander to the critics, and we have to keep pursuing a worthy cause. Because what we're fighting for is worthy. America is the greatest country in the world. And people like to act like it's not, but meanwhile, all the other countries had thousands of years to do it. We had 250 years to do it. And whatever made us the greatest country in those 250 years, we need to make sure that it remains that same way, or else we will fall and the critics will win, and we will not stay the greatest country in the world. And so that's my message for you guys today, is to think, really, okay, what cause are we fighting for? Is it a worthy cause? Is it something that's actually not controversial, but maybe the mainstream media or a critic has told me that that's a controversial issue? And when you know it's not, fight and be ready to become the man or the woman in the arena, because if you don't, the critics will win. And this is the greatest country in the world for a reason. We did it in 250 years. Everyone else had thousands of years to do it, and we did that.
It's a good speech, right? Again, he's not the most eloquent speaker in the world. He has that kind of, he just sounds like a college kid or somebody talking, right? It's very plain spoken. He's like, when he says like everybody tries to act like it's not the greatest country in the world. That's just it's like a normal person just speaking, right? But the things he's saying are really impactful, right? I like the cheerleading, first of all, pointing out that America became the greatest country in the world in 250 years when everybody else had thousands, right? But then also the call at the end to become the man in the arena in response to the critics who say that the country isn't as great as it is, that it's really guilty and we should be ashamed of ourselves. No, to not only speak out against that, but to actually be the man in the arena, going out and doing something about it, fighting against it, which is what he's known for. You know, in the same way that he's very plain spoken and kind of simple when he gets up there and talks, that's what he did with the fraud journalism, right? He just, in a very simple way, was just like this college kid that actually had the wherewithal to walk over to these places and knock on the doors and be like, hey, what's going on here? Do you have any kids in these daycares? Oh, hey, I see you're getting millions for a hospice. Do you actually have any patients? And that was all it took to blow the lid off of the fraud, right? So you don't have to be the smartest person in the world. You don't have to be like the most eloquent. You just need to do something. And I like that. Yet at the same time that he's investigating the fraud in Los Angeles, JD Vance, apparently they were able to detect hospice fraud in Los Angeles. They found 70 suspected fraudulent Medicaid providers, I guess it's Medicaid fraud in Los Angeles, using AI. So, first of all, it's going to be nearly impossible to commit a crime in the future, especially fraud, where you can look over like the numbers and you can have AI crunch stuff like that. You know, the DMV ladies, the government employees, they get tired when you got humans looking over all that stuff and they have to file an individual claim to shut down a hospice. When you feed that into AI, it pops up in 10 seconds with like 70 suspected Medicaid fraud places, right? So they were actually able to shut off the payments or suspend the payments to 70 different places in under a week using AI. So the detection's getting better, but that just shows you the tip of the iceberg of the kind of problem. Rand Paul's pointing out here, it took 1 week and an AI detection system to flag 70 suspected fraudulent Medicaid providers in Los Angeles. The real question, he asks, is why the federal government went decades without bothering to look. Which is a very interesting question. Leads me to believe that they're somehow getting something in return for it, right? Whether it's money or votes, they're getting something. This was Stephen Miller talking about the fact that you would think with all these millions of dollars going out in federal benefits, you would assume, one would assume that there are checks and balances, that there's a screening process, that there's some sort of a verification system. You gotta be, right? To be sure that all these people deserve it. He says no.
Is that all of our systems were set up and established for a high trust society. I think that most citizens probably assume that there's some verification process that takes place for the receipt of most federal benefits. The reality is that there is not. This is particularly true in blue states, willfully true in blue states, in which all of these programs are operated entirely on the honor system. No verification takes place before individuals are enrolled in or receive these benefits. So as a simple example, if you're a Somali refugee living in Minnesota, you could lie about how many children you have. You could lie about what your immigration status is. You could lie about your marital status. You could lie about child care. You could lie about disability. You could lie about all these things and many more. And nobody in the state of Minnesota would validate any of these facts before writing you a check.
Isn't that crazy? And it's true. I work in apartment management, and I see a lot of people that get benefits of various sorts to help with the rent and stuff. And a lot of these people are just completely scamming the system. I mean, they'll have benefits coming, and they'll still be short on their rent, and they'll rope in some third program to like help and pay their rent for a month. I'm certain that nobody's verifying these things that they're writing on their applications for these programs, right? You had Nick Shirley was pointing this out earlier as well. The federal government doesn't prosecute fraud if it's under $1.5 million. Did you guys know that? If it's under 1.5 million, chump change, they just don't prosecute it. Like, there's so much fraud that it's making me feel stupid. Like, I'm looking around, I'm like, why didn't I catch? Now they got AI catching everybody. Now it's too late for me to fraud everybody. But they don't even prosecute. That 1.5 million in unprosecutable fraud money could change my life. I'd be living the good life off that thing. That's like 1.5 million times the greatest amount of money I've ever had. Be great to have. Somebody says, can AI look into insider trading? I'm sure that's one of the things that it'll get really good at. Yeah. People will probably, that'll be the next thing, is Congress will probably be using AI for insider trading, right? So that was Stephen Miller is pointing that out. There's no checks and balances. We got some voter fraud happening. This is James O'Keefe. He's the Project Veritas guy. He's been in LA too. A lot of these things are happening in LA apparently. So he's been uncovering stories where this is on petitions mostly. So it's not in an election. There's not an election currently happening. But he's been going undercover and catching these schemes where people will register. Well, they won't register, but they'll get homeless people essentially. They'll pay homeless people to sign these petitions for things like getting rid of Uber, or getting rid of or taxing tips on bartenders, things like that. They'll get them to sign these petitions and they'll pay them to do that, which is illegal. He finds out here in a more recent investigation that they're actually somehow pulling people's names from actual residences and putting those on the registration forms. He goes to this lady here and confronts her about it. Her identity has apparently been stolen and used to sign a petition.
Hey there, I just want to let you know about your identity stolen.
Are you Sam or Susan?
Who are you? Let's start with this. And why are we filming? Can you stop right now? Turn it off. No, I'm sorry. We're not interested. Turn that off right now.
We're just trying to help your identity.
The liberals aren't interested in confronting reality, so they're not going to want to hear any of this.
Was stolen.
But why are we filming right now?
We're journalists.
Tell me.
Well, I'm a reporter. We're members of the press. They're using your name and they're voting in your name.
So how much would? Oh, cool. Okay, cool. Hold this. Okay.
Yeah, and then I'm gonna bring you a name.
Okay, sounds good. How much do I get paid?
$2 a board.
$2 a board.
Now this is crazy. This must be AI, because I was reliably informed that elections are the most secure system invented in the history of humankind, at least American elections and voting. I don't think this is actually possible, what you're seeing here. We could watch it, but I have a feeling it's fake news.
Cool.
That's your name. I've never met you before, but I'm coming to this address. I assume that's your name and address. Your name to homeless people to vote on a petition. So we just wondered if you'd be willing to give us a comment, on or off camera.
I mean, I don't have any. I don't have any specific comment right now. If it's troubling, but.
The crazy thing is you can tell his wife's a liberal and they're just not going to comment on it, even when he's showing them that their identity has been stolen to vote on something in an election, right? Which again is crazy, because when you consider how infallible the 2020 election was, it's crazy that this is able to slip through, whereas that was the perfect election. Maybe this is where that extra 4 million unaccounted for votes went. Maybe somewhere over here. I don't know. We'll have to keep looking for them, I guess. I know they're foolproof. So you got the hospice fraud. Nick Shirley's covering that in LA. JD Vance is using AI. Says that they have info on Ilhan Omar actually committing immigration fraud. That's big. And then James O'Keefe uncovering the voting fraud here, right? That's our fraud recap for the night. Moving on, we got more No Kings protests. Did you guys hear that? More than 3,100 No Kings demonstrations. About as many events as there are counties in the U.S. are expected in all 50 states. This is happening tomorrow. I want to go to it, but they're all so early. They're made for just elderly, I think. It's at I know it's not super early, but it's early for me. 10 a.m. It's 10 a.m. to noon or something. That's the protest. They're doing No Kings protests. I've got a joke about it. I'm going to tell my joke here. It's like, it's somewhat funny. Where is it? We'll do quick jokes. Quick jokes. All right. Well, the Democrats are holding their third No Kings protests across the country tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah. Meanwhile, Trump has been eliminating them. Yeah. Been doing his best to help out the Democrats and fulfill their wishes. It's 2 kings down. Pretty good. Well, in advance of the protests, LAPD has installed security fences to keep protesters off of freeways. Yeah. Unfortunately, thousands of LA residents were tragically killed when they instinctively hopped over the fence. A lot of them are just used to, that's how they got there, so. Tragically hit and killed. I liked them. That's, okay, we're going back to the news. Hold up. Back to the Twitter. Yes, I have a whole ass teleprompter I put them in. Okay, but that's another story, actually. So the LAPD has actually put up fencing on the freeways here. Okay, California installed security gates on downtown LA freeway ramps overnight to block access. Thank God. I mean, if there's one silver lining from the protest, at least they're getting sick of these annoying people gathering on the friggin' freeways. It's the worst thing in the world. Looks like a convenient way to spend tax money without fixing the real issue, he says. Yeah, it's obviously protest, your right to protest, sure. Your right to block traffic and hinder people and take away their livelihood, not so much. Not into that. So they're putting up the gates. Here's some video of protesters flooding the freeways previously. No Kings protests going down tomorrow. I do find it funny that Trump is actually removing dictators, though. That's what the joke refers to. I mean, they don't want a king. He's doing his best. He's taken out how many supreme leaders in Iran now? He's taken out at least like 20. Hold on. This is the graphic of Trump's work with No Kings. He's taken out at least 30 kings so far. But somehow the Democrats still believe that he is a king that needs to be. Let's move on to ICE. ICE and immigration. We got, I guess there were some liberals screaming about fascism at an airport. And some ICE agents here just laughing at them. It's funny because the ICE agents are so diverse. That's like the best part about the ICE agents is like half of them that I see are Mexican. And some of them are black dudes.
No thoughts. You guys are the foot soldiers of a fascist regime, right? Is that not what it is? Is that funny? Is that funny? No thoughts.
Just laughing.
You guys are the foot.
That's great. There's somebody was pointing out on a related tweet here. It's insane to think back on the 90s. Hardly any foreigners. I don't need to agree with that, but okay. And Democrats would send in a tactical team if a little kid tried to come here illegally. Do you guys remember this? This was the whole Elian Gonzalez thing. This is the part I wanted to point out. I don't mind foreigners, by the way, as long as you legally get here. I love immigrants as long as you do it the legal way, you add to the country. Elon Musk is an immigrant, right? How could I hate on him? But here he's pointing out there was this whole like fiasco with Elian Gonzalez. Democrats totally supported this at the time when it happened. And this guy here says, and boomer Democrats are so helpless against media programming that they don't even remember it. Which is true. They're literally just believe that like Trump invented ICE and that it's his personal Gestapo force. They don't remember that it was there. Even CNN was like commending ICE agents just a decade ago under Obama. like what a good job they were doing securing the border. But I do believe they're actually like so programmed currently by the efficiency of media propaganda and the repetition, just the sheer repetition, that they don't even literally remember. We get some crime news every day. Another repeat offender who killed somebody released onto the streets. So this is San Francisco judge Linda Colfax, let's shout her name, has released a man who fatally assaulted an 84-year-old because the prison sentence would have had a poor impact on him. You got to look out for those criminals. Not that he has a poor impact on society, but it could have a poor impact on his future. It was 25-year-old Antoine Watson was granted probation just 2 months after he was convicted of involuntary manslaughter and assault. Watson violently assaulted this guy in 2021, which resulted in his death. Just knocks into him right there, this elderly man. 2 days later, he died. He was acquitted of first and second degree murder charges and instead convicted of involuntary manslaughter. Colfax says Watson being in prison would have a poor impact on him and didn't think he should be there because he expressed remorse. Okay? Now, here's the kicker, too. The thing about the judge is she's accused of hiding... the kid had a prior history of being in juvie, and apparently he was in programs and had successfully completed them. So she hid the details of his juvenile history from the jury in the initial trial so that it didn't come into play in their verdict on him. But then when it came time for her to sentence him, she referenced his successful release from those programs as being one of the reasons why she was reducing the sentencing, right? So she hides the facts from the jury, and then she uses those same facts to inform her opinion of the sentence. So people are pointing that out. It's just liberal judges getting involved in what they feel is a humanitarian cause to be soft on criminals. Because these criminals are so boo-hoo, they're so hurt by systemic racism that they had to do this. So it's her white liberal job to let him out early so it doesn't have a poor impact on him. This guy murdered an 84-year-old guy. He's having a poor impact on society. He should never be released. He should be behind bars. I don't care what impact it has. I mean, look at that. Why would you want to live next to that? Anyone. This lady apparently does. So that's the judge right there. Again, another story just yesterday we were talking about. There was a guy who got released in New York who was not released, but he basically shoved, I think it was nearing the same age, 84-year-old 80s Army veteran into a New York subway track. And I'm sure he'll be released pretty soon, too. It's main stuff. So, yeah, we had the attack on the Kuwait base. We'll try to look up what's going on with the soldiers right now. Other news from Iran, we're hearing that the U.S. will be using, possibly, autonomous warboats. This was an interesting article, kind of tech. U.S. has deployed robot warboats, uncrewed, autonomous, potentially explosive, so kamikaze unmanned boats, right? Pentagon confirms drone vessels are now patrolling during Operation Epic Fury. 450 plus hours already logged, 2,200 nautical miles covered, capable of surveillance or kamikaze strikes. That's their version of asymmetric warfare, they say. Cheap, fast, and deadly. I think as many different autonomous systems as the U.S. can employ, particularly against an enemy that's not concerned with their own life and will kamikaze themselves with a vest strapped to their body, right? As many robot boats, drones you want to send in there, the U.S. and Trump is probably all for that. So this is the future of warfare right here. It's going to be, I mean, why would you even want to fight anymore when you've got robot boats coming at you that can just blow up on command? We got drones coming at you from the sky, right? So that's the story. There's liberals were cheering on the release of an Iranian propaganda video today. Here's one. Iran doesn't seem intimidated at all and has just released another Lego video mocking the coalition. And somebody above it says, they're winning because they posted an AI video with Legos. Which is the vibe, yeah. they're winning. They're doing such a good job. We've taken out like 60 of their leaders, but they're winning because they have a Sora membership. That just proved Iran has once had $20. That's all. Like, if that's what you're cheering is an AI Lego video, but yeah, people are pointing it out. There's Maze on Twitter. He's a pretty good follow. He was pointing out today that a new Democrat hoax has just dropped. He's seeing everybody retweeting this same image here. Democrat politicians, he says, will go discuss this on mainstream media for a few days while the writers work on the next hoax. It's apparently something about Hegseth, Chief of Staff, Ricky chastised the Army Secretary, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, the whole hoax is that Trump supposedly doesn't want to stand next to a black female officer at military events, right? Which is ridiculous on its face. We've seen Trump seems to have a pretty good relationship with black people and black women in general. But this is the hoax. It's being repeated across. You can see like verbatim. The memo has gone out. There's what, 9 of these same tweets from the Democrat influencers or whatever it is. So yeah, this is how they do it. It's you use an unnamed source or an anonymous source, or somebody who's willing to come out and doesn't really care about, you know, their name, and you make an allegation that can't be confirmed, something about racism or dictator wants to attack the American people, use military against them, and they just have the mainstream media repeat it. And this is how you get older liberals don't remember that Obama used ICE. They just think Trump invented it, right? Because they're hearing this sort of stuff on repetition all day long in their media. So be on the lookout for that hoax. There's going to be a lot of hoaxes dropping in the lead up to the midterms. Those hoaxes, they come up every 2 to 4 years. You'll see them crest. I'm expecting some civil unrest this summer. A little bit of a summer of love, perhaps. We'll see. So that's it for tonight. It's Friday night. I got to go out and party. Probably do laundry. So, yeah, hope you guys are having a good rest of your weekend. I might join tomorrow, do another live stream. In any case, if you like the show, subscribe on YouTube, or I'm also on Kick, Twitch, Rumble, all those things. Subscribe on one of those. I'm not always here. Just came up from our second siren. Who's came up from the second siren? Ingo, what's going on? You in Israel? I got one of my followers is over in Israel, I believe. She says she just came up from her second siren. Newsflash, the Houthi rebels joined the bombing. Well, that's not good news, Inga. I'd hope to hear better updates from you, if possible. But in any case, I'm wrapping it up here, actually, for the night. I'll be back maybe tomorrow night and Sunday. I might do this like every night or something. But for sure, subscribe on YouTube. I'll be here Monday through Friday. Show airs live, typically live, right at 6 p.m. Pacific time. So that's 9 p.m. Eastern time. And I'm down to chat, too. So if you guys like to talk. Sometimes everybody's quiet, but you can pop into the chat and stuff. And I'll catch you guys at least Monday, maybe do some streams tomorrow and Sunday. If you like newsletters too, I do a Substack, which it'll basically recap all the show notes so that you get that delivered in the morning. You can get a recap on all the day's news and stuff like that. So anyways, take care of yourself, Inga. Stay safe. Get in one of those shelters or something. I heard they're dropping cluster bombs and stuff like that are getting through. Odd thing to end on, but all right, everyone, have a good rest of your night.